created by Cable for Canadians.
Hi, welcome to Beyond Politics. I'm Catherine Clark. Gilles Duceppe is one of the longest-serving politicians on Parliament Hill. Not particularly welcome when he first arrived in the early 1990s. He is now a part of the political establishment. He's from a prominent, large theater family in Quebec, and he's the father of 2 kids of his own with his wife, Yolande. He joins me now to talk about life beyond politics. Gilles Duceppe, welcome to Beyond Politics. It is just such a pleasure to have you here.
Same for me. It's a real pleasure.
You are such a fixture of the Canadian political scene, which is in a way ironic. but you know, the past decade and a half of my life, you have been one of those constant political presences. And I think that they are few and far between now, and it's just a great pleasure to have the opportunity to chat with you. So, I wanted to know what made you a separatist, and I don't want to start on I don't mean to start on such a heavy note, but I was really interested when doing my research about what was the turning point when you were a young person.
The real turning point was when René Lévesque quit the Liberals in 1967. Because before that, I was supporting René Lévesque. He was a Liberal, but the Liberal did a great job in the 60s with the Quiet Revolution. And the very first debate I had in college was against the separatist movement. I was supporting the Federalist movement, 1962, 63, something like that. But when Lévesque made his decision, not against Canada, I think that when we read what Lévesque wrote in 1967, he said exactly the same thing that Boutros Ghali said in 1992. Basically that nation and people are getting their own country, and those same countries are going together in a larger political or economic body. So those are the 2 main political streams nowadays. But if you want to really participate to a bigger body, first of all, you've got to exist. And the very strength of the European Union, as a matter of fact, is the fact that all the components are countries, respecting each other. Exactly what Lévesque said. So when he made that move, I said, well, I support that.
Were you always politically motivated? Because you came from a very prominent acting family. Was there still a political component to your family life?
Oh yes, because my father was one of the Jean Duceppe supporters in 1954. When Duceppe was first elected as mayor of Montreal. I remember that election. I was 7 at that time, but we were discussing that a lot at home. Then he was president of the Artists Union during the CBC strike in 1959. He was one of the founder of the NDP in 1962. He was supporting, very friend with a great friend of René Lévesque, so he was supporting Lévesque in 1960 and 1962 election and even 1966. Then he also moved with Lévesque in 1967.
So when you would sit down around your family dinner table, you would have political discussions?
And sport.
And sport. Okay.
Well, sport, and obviously theater also, because Papa was always explaining the play he was playing, a lot of Archer Miller, as a matter of fact. And when he was playing a certain character, he was that character for the month and a half.
Even at home?
Even at home. I remember when he played Duplessis the chef, Charbonneau was the chef, that was the title. Duplessis has that matter of always doing that. So for the time he was playing Duplessis, he was always like that at supper time. So he was Duplessis. He was no more Jean Duceppe.
So unusual.
That was.
Or was it totally normal?
It was normal, and even during the plays, I remember great actors like Provost, Letourneau, all hockey fans, and they were coming on the stage, giving their back to the people and saying it's 2-1. So Duplessis was giving the score to Charbonneau, and But as Duplessis, not as Jean Duceppe.
Okay. So you talk about sports, you talk about arts, you talk about or theater, you talk about politics. When you were little, did you think to yourself, okay, well, I'm going to have a career in one of those fields then?
I was always motivated in political and social activities. I was the vice president of the students' unions in Quebec with same executives than Claude Charon and Louis Arel. Jean Duceppe was there, Pierre McJohnson, and so all those people who were there at the very same time, or almost. And then I was with Robert Burns' very first PQ election, and I went to Citizens Committee and unions and the extreme left also. Was an error, but I mean, I won't rewrite the history.
Why do you think it's an error?
It was an error because the lack of democracy. There's no democracy at all in those regimes.
Okay.
So,
well, because
it was totally foolish.
Communism, basically.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
But I was not the only one. I remember when I think the very first crime I made in Ottawa, I saw a lot of people who were active in those movements who never made their coming out.
Yeah.
So they asked me the question. I said yes, and I know a lot of people around who were there also. So that was the last question.
So how big?
Pierre Calsparado was one of them.
Oh really?
Yeah. So.
Oh, boy.
Quite a change.
So everyone makes mistakes.
Yes, and you got to learn from that. But,
absolutely. And that's why I wonder why
either you say it's an error, I don't do anything else anymore, or you say, well, I'll take a lesson out of that and I'll do something else.
Yeah, because in fact, I'm not even. I wonder if you call it an error because you think that other people are judgmental about it, or because you really believe that it was
I really believe it's an error.
Okay.
I was wondering how come I made those moves, but
that's because you're looking for answers. Right?
Yes.
As a kid?
But I think also that in Quebec we broke with the Catholic Church in the 60s. But they were giving us every answers. So it was not conscience, but we were looking for prepared answers.
Right.
And the communist movement was given that.
Yeah.
So that was not. We were coming back to something that we renounced.
Right.
That was the biggest error of all.
Just in a different form.
That's it.
Right. So we've determined that your father inherited his characters even at home. What was he like as a dad, though, when he wasn't pretending he was Duplessis?
Well, I think he was not there very often since he was a morning man in Montreal. He was on TV, he was on stage, he was in nightclubs. We were 7 children, I remember once he was a morning man in Montreal, then he was coming here to National in Ottawa to play at 12 for 2-3 weeks, then stopping in Montreal at 4 for a TV program, and on stage in Quebec City at 8.
Oh my gosh.
So that was something. And during that time, my mom, she was at home with 7 children.
Yeah.
That's quite a job also.
How?
Quite a job. But I think even if he was not there very often, he was always coming to see us playing basketball or football, sometimes half an hour or so, but he was there. And we heard him. We were sure he was there.
Really? Was he loud? And opinionated?
Very partisan. Referees didn't like him at all.
No. And then you had all the other siblings as you're cheering back up too.
Yeah, but I think that was we were a close family, and we're still. We used to be there every second week when Papa was still alive. Now my mom is 85 years old. We can't do that every second week, but at least once a month. All the children and grandchildren, there were between 25 and 30 at home, and my mother's living alone in 10 apartments, doing everything. She doesn't want someone doing the housekeeping for her. She's doing everything, and she's going to the dépanneur, buying his newspapers every day. She doesn't want to have that at home, so she can walk. It's important for her.
So she's a really strong person.
Yes, she is.
Is that how she got through raising 7 kids while your dad was gone so much?
Yes, most probably, and very close to us, very open-minded also.
Right. When you say open-minded, what do you mean?
She was when we started going out with girls friends or boys, depending. Sisters.
Yeah.
My sisters went out with boys, and she was always asking us, be careful, be gentle. Don't always only look for your own pleasure.
Interesting.
So that was very open in the 60s to say something like that. And we learned from that, I think.
Was she tough with you?
No, but discipline, but not tough.
Okay.
Not tough. And,
yeah.
But we used to live like a tribe. I mean, we were at the very beginning in a 4.5 apartments. My grandfather, who was a home child, my grandmother, my mother, my father, my uncle, my aunt, and 2 brothers.
Wow.
So that was something. Then we moved in a big 7 with 2 more sisters.
That's incredible.
So, I mean, but that was the time. So today when we look at life changed completely.
But you say that was the time, and yet your family still makes every effort to get together regularly.
Yeah.
Why is family so important?
I think it is, and I do the same thing with my 2 children. Almost every week on Sunday night they come with their own children.
Yes.
For supper.
Right.
We go together for vacation.
Yeah.
Not all vacation, but part of it.
Because you and your wife wouldn't survive a whole vacation with your grandchildren.
That's it. But when I entered politics, Alexis was 11 and Amélie was 16, so still young. But I was calling them every day, and I never missed a meeting where they're giving the bulletin. So I was
good.
going
like the parent-teacher
back and forth from Ottawa, or they were both playing music in an orchestra, a symphonic orchestra, and I didn't miss a concert for 12 years.
That's amazing.
But I think those are not green plans.
Right.
And if you're not in touch with that, there's good chances you're not in touch with life.
Right. Or at least what's important in life. Yeah. So you were a sports fan.
Yeah.
You played football and basketball.
And volleyball.
And volleyball.
Yeah.
Okay.
High level.
You're Renaissance people.
Yeah, but when I look at volleyball, I was in Quebec City lately, and I met people who played against me, but 3 of my teammates made the Olympic team in '76, so we had a good team. Yeah. And I still have the record in the senior basketball, college basketball, 43 points in a game. It was a good game.
So, did you think of pursuing sports seriously?
Certain time, yes, but I mean, I was at that time I was 6 and 172 pounds. Yeah. Not big enough to play football with.
Okay. You would have been crushed.
Yeah, that's it. Be a good dummy in the Canadian training camp, but not more than that.
Okay.
But some of the people who played against or with us made the Canadian Football League, and we had a good team.
Do you have any regrets for not trying?
No, not at all. No. I was not for them. One of my brother was playing hockey at junior level. The Rangers wanted to sign him at 11 years old because there was no how do you call that?
Like the draft?
The draft. No draft at that time.
Yeah.
So my father kicked them out.
Of the house?
I mean, this is not a horse. He's a young child. But he was a very good, he played the junior hockey at 13. He was a very good hockey player, but 1 out of 10,000 are succeeding.
Sure.
Especially at that time, it was 6 teams.
You grew up in a household where you had a very famous parent. How did that influence how you grew up? Well, they were my parents, first of all. So, I mean, you don't choose your parents. And that was normal. Right. Only normal. Yeah. Surprising certain time when people were stopping in front of our house and looking, and so. Yeah. Then we realized that time that
my dad was very well known. But having said that, it was a normal family.
Did any of you kids want to take on a career like he had in the theater community?
Most of the family is in the cultural sector.
Okay.
Because one of my brother is in the movie sector. My sister is directing the Jean Duceppe Theater in Montreal, Place des Arts.
Right.
The other one is a screenplay, metteur en scène. The third sister is with the costumes. The last one, my younger brother, he's 52 now, 53. He's with the Cirque du Soleil. He's responsible of all their installation around the world. My daughter's behind the camera, and my son is on the soundtrack, and also making short movies. Maybe he'll make Sundance and Cannes this year. So
fascinating.
But it's tough, but they like it.
Yeah, because it is a tough profession. There's a difference, I think, in Quebec. There's a tremendous amount of support for arts and culture. That's not necessarily the case in the rest of the country.
And this is one thing I said very often in the rest of Canada. I said, well, I heard that, I don't know how many times, people were meeting in delegation American people, and they were asking my Canadian friends, you're different from us. From which point of view? We got a French province. So I said, it's not very sane to using a term to define yourself. And I said, the day, I hope, Quebec will become a country, Canada will have to live through its quiet revolution. Because you have the same language in the Americans, English, but also the British have the same language, and they're different from the Americans. But Canadians are different also. The Canadian cities are different. Canadians don't want to control the world, and we don't have the means. But I think Canadians know their author, not enough their singers, not enough their TV, not enough their movie. And this is one thing we learned during the Quiet Revolution. We discovered the world by discovering ourselves. And we said, well, it's worth addressing the universal from our local point of view. It's like that for any nation, any national identity. And I think it's worth being a Canadian. I respect that profoundly. But Canadians are not aware enough of their own cultures.
How did your family react when you decided to run?
Well, my father was not for it. At first he said, you should go in Quebec, not in Ottawa. Well, I said, at that time, 1990 was just a few weeks after the failure of Meach.
Right.
And then the people in Laurier-Sainte Marie would have elected a liberal. So that was in total contradiction with what happened, because they had no choice. And I said, well, we have to give them a choice. And
did you expect that you were going to win?
Yes.
You did? Good. For being honest.
Yes, I said, we'll win.
Okay.
We'll win. I remember it was even 2 days after, I didn't know Lucien Bouchard at all personally. So 2 days after he quit, I was meeting with one of my friends. He's still working with me, Pierre-Paul Leroy, and Yolande, my wife. I said, I mean, we just can't let the Liberal win. It was the Denis. So we have to do something. He said, yes, you're right. And I was negotiating the hotel sector in Quebec at that time. So I was busy like hell.
Your wife said yes too? She agreed?
Oh yes, she was the first one to say yes. I said, then my friend Pierre-Paul said, but who do you want to run? I said, I'll go. I said, you don't have the time to do that. I said, no, but you'll find the time. Tried to find a meeting with Bouchard, and another friend tried to talk to the people and call me because I don't have the time. Was negotiating day and night. So finally, I met Bouchard the 7th of July. I said, I'm ready to go if I finish my negotiations. If not, forget it, because I won't quit when I'm doing something. He was calling me, I think, every 2 hours, saying, "You're coming?" I said, "No, it's not over." So finally, the 9th of July, that was over. I said, "Okay, I'm ready." And the 11th, I was a candidate.
Amazing.
It came like that.
That's amazing.
And people were, at first, they were telling me, "But Bouchard has no party." I said, "I'm sure he'll form a group." A few days after it happened. And when we met, it connected well, because he used to be a negotiator also. So we knew each other, what we were doing in the past.
Right.
And I'm still a good friend of Lucien.
When you showed up in Ottawa, you were probably not the most welcome person at the party. They probably weren't, ringing the bells and saying, "Hey, welcome." So what was it like for you, those first few days and months here in Ottawa?
Well, the very first time I went in the House of Commons, John Fraser was the speaker. And he said, "I wish you a long career." That was a good joke. I mean, typical British humor. And then when I first started to talk to people from the rest of Canada or touring around, first I told them that my mother is named Rowley. My grandfather was a home child. So I got nothing against the English people. I said, "I'm a bloke who turned black." And my mother is as a Quebecer as I am. And I think the Bloc did a hell of a job with people coming from other horizons, like Makakoto, Viviane Barbeau, Mourani, Faye, Marie Teixeira, Nunes. And we said a Quebecer is a Quebecer is a Quebecer, period. We don't want an ethnic nationalism.
But you weren't part of that kind of a big group when you first got here.
Oh, we were only 7, then 8, then 7.
Right.
And no party.
Right.
But in 1993, when we ran and we won 54 seats in Quebec, and we organized the party, and when you look at the platform we proposed in 93 and the one we have now, same orientation. So it's funny when people are saying, "No, the Bloc's more to the left or this or that." I mean, we work for free trade, which is not really supported by the left, even in Quebec. But in 92, unions in Quebec were supporting NAFTA, while in Canada they were against. So there was certainly a difference.
But on a personal level, if you're walking through the halls of the House of Commons and no one really wants you there, at that time, people just, you weren't part of the political landscape. People just thought, what is this group?
What is it?
How did they treat you as an individual?
I think I would say the public servants and the security guards and all the staff, with a great respect.
Oh, good.
So this is, I think, very, very important. They always respecting all the members, and this is a very good a plus. And I always said that Canada is a great democracy. I don't want to make Quebec a sovereign country because I'm against Canada, but because I'm for Quebec.
Right.
And but in 1990, they thought it was just an epidemic reaction to each. And then they were kind of surprised in 93 when we became the official opposition.
Yeah, I would say that's a good way to characterize it.
Yeah, but it was not the first. Remember in 1976, August 76, Pierre Trudeau said, "Separatism is dead in Quebec." November 76, Lévesque won the very first sovereignist government in Quebec. Last referendum in 95, Jean Chrétien, the very few first days, we were at 38 at the beginning. He said, "We'll just smash them." So I think that humanity knew better prophets than Trudeau and Chrétien. And we always should look at the other interest to better know what will come. I think each nation has the policy of its own interest. And in the human history, it happens that a decade doesn't worth a day. And sometimes an hour worth a lot of decades. When the Berlin Wall collapsed, it was worth a lot of decades. But that wouldn't have been possible if people didn't fight hard during all those decades. So the human history is not at the very same speed every time. It's not a highway. It got curves, and if you got straight ahead in the curves, that could be dangerous. So you'll have to adapt his strategy.
Yeah.
And when you think things are done and it's over, it's always an error. You have to look carefully at the situation.
You had a very interesting and I think lasting encounter with a teacher when you were a kid. An altercation almost on the bus.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what happened?
Yeah, and I was president of my school, 6th grade, primary school. And at that time, French and English in the same school. And girls and boys. So in Quebec, that was very rare.
School.
So I created a students' association, a bilingual newspaper. So I had no problem with that. And there was a Catholic school. There was a Protestant school just on the other side of the street. And during winter, they had a bus service, not the Catholic one. So we said, so they said all the English students from the Catholic school could come in a bus. I said, well, French also should have the right. So I made a pressure. We went in the bus. I sat down, and the teacher came at me and said, you'll give your seat to an English student. I said, no, madam. So she just hit me.
Wow.
So I stood up and I hit her.
And what happened
They
then?
threw me out of the bus, and the English students were laughing at me. I ran. The first one who stepped out of the bus, bang, I hit him also. And then they came at my home. And my parents were in Europe, and my grandfather and grandmother were taking care of us during those 2 weeks. And so the mother came with the little boy, and my grandfather said, he was named John James Rowley, said, well, it was just like Dempsey and Tunney in the second fight, because my grandfather used to be a boxer at a certain time. And when Tunney did that, she said, this is a crazy family. So it has nothing to do with English and French. It has something to do with discrimination.
Okay.
I would have done the same thing reverse.
Sure.
So when they heard that story here, they made a fuss about it.
Right.
Because he hated the English. I said, no, it has nothing at all with that. I wouldn't have accepted if a French teacher has made the same thing against an English student, saying you stand up, you give your seat to a French student. Said no, this is discrimination, a way or another. There's not such a thing as a superior nation or a country better than another one. I remember here it was a few events. It was insulting the other delegation. I remember one from Hungary at a certain time, and the Liberals were speaking first. I was speaking second, and they said, "Welcome to the first country in the world." So when I said, first of all, I want to apologize in the name of the Canadian population, the Quebec population, people and nation, because if we're first, Canadians first, which rank are you in Hungary? 5th, 5th, 25th? There's not such a thing as the first country in the world. And I told my Hungarian friends, you know what it is to live beside someone who think he's the first nation. You knew Adolf and Joseph Stalin, so you knew that pretty well. So they came to me and said, well, you were my friend.
Mr. Duceppe, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. It's been a really great pleasure to have you.
It was a pleasure for me also. Thank you.
Merci.